friends, welcome back to my channel. My name is Taylor and today we are going to be talking about a lot of books. This is all of the books that I have read in the first 3 months of 2021, which thanks to my middle grade March challenge is a lot of books. So typically I'm going to try and do these recent reads for the 3 months previously because monthly wrap-ups for me are not very doable. But I do want to discuss this year the books that I am reading, the books that I'm liking, because I'm also planning on every quarter doing unhauls of the books that I've read the previous 3 months, just to keep my book collection a little more under control, a little bit better managed. So with that being said, let's go ahead and dive on into the books. I'm going to try and remember my ratings for some of these. I'll link my Goodreads down below if I don't particularly remember the rating. I'm just gonna kind of ballpark what I remember it being, and yeah, we'll go from there. We'll see how this goes. But basically, so let's go ahead and start with January. So I think these are the majority of the books that I read for the month of January. The first one being In Love and Pajamas, and I'm not listing these in order either, by the way. We're just going through the stock. Take it for what you will. I don't know. Okay. So the first one I read was In Love and Pajamas. This is a collection of Katana Comics, who is on Instagram. I really love her comics. They're about her and her boyfriend John, who now I think is actually her fiance, and they're really, really cute. I'll be honest, for personal reasons, I didn't love this one as much as I've loved her other books, but they're super cute. They're just adorable little, like, tiny moment snapshots of just the cute aspects of being in relationships that I really, really love. So it was cute. I think I gave this one like a 3 or a 4 star. I enjoyed it, but again, not as much as some of her other stuff that I've read, but they're always cute. I'll always pick up a book by her, and yeah, I enjoyed it. Okay, the next one I read is a continuation of books that I've read pretty much every single one of, and that is the Milla Gray romance series. She comes out with these, I think, every December. I'm obsessed with them. I'll be honest though, the first book in the series is still my absolute favorite, and that one I believe is called Come Back to Me. I love these books. They're just YA romance stories. They're super straightforward. I mean, you know what's going to happen. They're a bit formulaic, they're a bit predictable, but I still really enjoy them. I still really like them. This one follows a ex-Marine, or no, what is he? Yeah, I think he's an ex-Marine, and he ends up becoming a bodyguard for a famous singer. So a little bit bodyguard-ish, like that movie with Whitney Houston. I hate this cover. I don't know why. The girl with the weird, like, not real tattoo and the fake nails, I don't know. It's a lot for me. This one definitely wasn't my favorite. The first 3, I think, in the series are still hands down my favorite, but this exists in that same kind of world. There's pop-ups of old characters from the previous series, so I really like that it's all interconnected. So you can definitely read these as standalones, but it's nice if you kind of can know who some of those people are from the previous books. So I really enjoy it. Again, the first one was my favorite. I think I gave this one a 3 star of this one. The fame element of it, it just all kind of wasn't my favorite, but again, I enjoyed it. Okay, next I read another continuation of one of my favorite series. This is Across the Green Grass Field by Seanan McGuire. This, I've read every single one of these Wayward Children series. This one I think was one of my favorites. The standalones that aren't really the continuation of the actual storyline are some of my favorites. This was actually the first standalone of one that we haven't seen this character before in the book series, so that was really cool to see how I think she'll tie into the continuation of the rest of the series. I just loved this. I thought it was so good. It's just about this girl who ends up going into like a unicorn type, not unicorn, but like there's unicorns and centaurs, and like for a horse loving girl, I just thought that was so fun. And yeah, I think I gave this one 4 or 5 stars. It was one of my favorites from the series, and I will read everything in the Wayward Children series. No question. Okay, next, this was one of my books that I wanted to read in 2021. I believe that was part of that video. It should be here up on my channel, but this is The Light Between Worlds. This is one of those like Through the Looking Glass, Narnia traveling between worlds type of books, kind of similar in the vein of the Greengrass Field Wayward Children series of like girls and kids that go through a world and then end up coming back and how they grapple with that reality. It was really more intense than I actually thought that it would be. It was really different, really good. I loved the writing. There were certain elements of the book that like didn't make it a full 5 stars for me, so I think I gave this one a 4 out of 5, but this is just one of those books that like sticks with you after you put it down. It's about 2 sisters and a brother that go through this world where they meet this stag, and like I really wish there was more in this other world. A lot of the time that was spent was them grappling with the reality post leaving that world, and I really wish we could have gotten more in the actual like world and like the world building of that. I wish was just so much more. And so yeah, again, it wasn't like a full 5 stars, but it was one of those books that I think will definitely stick with me, and I really enjoyed it. Next is Lois Lowry, Number the Stars, and this was one, again, that was a little unexpected for me. I love Lois Lowry books. I will read everything that's ever been written by her, and this is essentially about a girl that lives in Copenhagen in 1943 and is essentially following her and her best friend who is a Jew, and kind of what that looks like in Copenhagen during World War II, and that like all of the things that go along with that. It was really actually for only, I think this is like 200 pages. It was real, no, not even 137. I really enjoyed this. It was so interesting. It really sucked me in, and I love stories that don't follow the typical World War II elements, like things that pop up during World War II, which was such a global phenomenon that like I just love learning stories about, and especially for a middle grade, it just read so easily and was so interesting. So I really enjoyed this. I think I gave this 4 or 5 stars as well, and this was, I think, again, one of my favorite books from the month. Okay, new release that I read for this month was Shine Your Icy Crown by Amanda Lovelace. Again, I've read all of the books in, I think, what is this called, like the romance, not romance, like fairy tale style series that she comes out with. These are all poetry collections. They're a little Instagram-y style, just in the sense that like, I don't know, they just kind of follow a certain kind of type of poetry, but they had really cute illustrations in this one. And again, as you guys can see, I tabbed my favorites. I always have certain ones that just speak to me from her poems for that time in my life, and I really enjoyed it. I love all of her poetry, so I think I gave this one a 4 out of 5 stars. January, if you can't tell, was a pretty good reading month for me. Okay, and the last book that I read in January was City of Bones by Cassandra Clare. Now, this is a book that is very loved here on BookTube, and I don't know how to feel about it still. It reads like what you'd expect an early 2000s, mid 2000s fantasy series book to read. And I think I don't know how I feel about it, because I still want to read the series. I still have the whole series that I ended up purchasing. I want to continue in it, but it's not good. And I think like we all know that, like, it's not great. And I know from people's videos that I've watched, her writing does develop. I think this came out in like 2007 or something like that. 2000 and, oh my gosh, 2007. So again, it reads like a Twilight. It reads like those kinds of books where there's a lot of angst and a lot of things happening, and like I still think about this book, which is why I think I enjoyed it, but I feel like I need to like read a synopsis or like a summary so I can like kind of wrap my head around it, because it's like every 5 pages something was going on. It was just a lot. But as I've talked about in my books I want to read in 2021, I will continue in this series. I do want to read it, and I want to see how the writing does progress. It's just a weird book for me in a lot of ways. So yeah, I think I gave this one 3 out of 5 stars. I wasn't super impressed with it, but again, I will continue in the series because I need to know what happens next. I don't know, man. Okay. All right, so those are the books that I read in January. Now let's hop into the books that I read for February. So the first book that I read in February, again, I'm not doing these in the order of when I read them, just the books that are in my stack, and that was Romeo and Juliet by, of course, William Shakespeare. This is a pretty cool bind up that has a like, what do you call it? Like a short novella retelling of Juliet's side of the story, which is by Jacqueline Ritten. And I actually really enjoyed reading that before I read the actual Romeo and Juliet, because I think it gave me a lot more context in theory when I was reading through this that really helped me understand what was going on, because I read Romeo and Juliet freshman year of high school, so it's been a minute. But again, it's Romeo and Juliet. I think I gave this like 3 out of 5 stars. It's so classic, but it's so overdone at this point that I think reading the original classics, for me, it takes a lot for me to love a classic. But I'm glad I read it. I want to read more classics, so I enjoyed it. Glad that I finished it. Next, I read or started my series read of The Doll People by Anne M. Martin. She's the author of the Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants series, I believe. I might be totally lying about that, but this is a cute middle grade series. I love these books. They're just like very nostalgic for me. They have really cute illustrations about a family of dolls that come to life and just have fun adventures. The illustrations, like I said, are super cute. I enjoyed it. I give these usually, I think, like 4 out of 5 for pure nostalgic factor, but yeah, I enjoyed it. Again, first book in the series, and as you'll see in a little bit, I ended up reading the entire rest of the series and enjoyed it very much. Okay, next, I read a couple of graphic novels. The first one is Primer by Jennifer Murrow. I actually really liked this. So this is about a foster child that goes and ends up coming with this family, and I loved the art. It just looked very like cartoony, and she ends up getting superpowers from these paints that the mom kind of has formulated in this lab. It's a whole like superhero girl power story. I think it's super cute. I really liked it. I kind of want to see if there's more in this series, but if it's just a standalone, that also works too. But yeah, it was super cute and I really enjoyed it. I think I gave this one 4 out of 5 stars. Okay, the other graphic novel that I read in February was Long Distance by Thomas F. Zandler, and this is exactly what it sounds like, a graphic novel about a couple doing long distance. Again, I loved the art of this. It was very cartoony, very cute kind of style about a couple. I think she lives in Ohio and he lives in Chicago, or one of the two. So it was really cute. I liked it. The ending for me left a little bit to be desired, so I think I ended up giving this 3 or 4 stars. But again, really enjoyed it. I've really been getting into graphic novels over the last year or so, so this is a really cute one. Okay, then for a fiction book that I read, this is All This Time by Nikki Daughtry and Rachel Lippincott, and they're the authors that wrote 5 Feet Apart, that movie that came out with Cole Sprouse a few years ago. This one, I really, really loved 5 Feet Apart as a book. It's one of those that just sticks with you after the fact. This one, it does, but not as much. I don't know. I go back and forth on this one. This is basically about a guy who ends up having his girlfriend break up with him the night of their like graduation, and then they get in a car crash and she dies. You know all this because like it's in the synopsis. I'm not spoiling anything, but basically it's him trying to grapple with like her death and like trying to move on and have his own life, etc., etc. There's a really huge twist near the end of this book, and I just found it kind of rushed and kind of like there wasn't really enough time to grasp like what kind of happened before everything wrapped up in a nice bow and it was like the end. So I feel like they just spent a lot of time in this first half of the book, and then all of a sudden the twist happened and it like all of that was like 100 pages and then the book was done. So I really wish they had split that a little more. I'm obviously not going to say what the spoiler was if you guys haven't read this, but if you've read it, you know what I'm talking about. So I enjoyed this. I really liked it. Again, it is one that kind of sits with you a little bit, but I don't think I'd ever, I don't know, come back to it or like think, I don't know. It's one of those that kind of, I'm still kind of processing how I feel about it, but again, I enjoyed it overall. The stories were cute. It does have that element of magical realism to it. So I think I ended up giving this one a 3 or a 4 star. I like it. I'll pick up anything that this author duo still writes because they're just cute, like romantic, fun reads. But yeah, that was all this time. All right. Then I read another poetry book. This is The Dark Between Stars by Atticus. Again, this is a little bit of like poetry for me. I read through once, I tag all my favorite poems, which as you can see, I did have a pretty good amount of like poems that I liked. But again, these are very kind of similar where they just seem very, I can't say another way of saying it other than like Instagram-y type poems. So I liked it. Again, poetry for me is a little bit high level. I just like the stories that I like, and that's kind of all there is to it. It's basically about a relationship and living your life, you know, all the things that poetry encompasses. So yeah, I enjoyed it. I think I gave this one like a 3-star and enjoyed it, but not my favorite. Last 2 books of February, the second to last one I read was Mitch and Amy by Beverly Cleary. I am trying to read all of my Beverly Cleary books this year. This again is just about a pair of twins named Mitch and Amy who basically have to deal with a school bully. I liked it. I love Beverly Cleary's books. Again, they're so nostalgic and fun for me. There's obviously elements of this that don't age quite so well because I think these came out in like the 60s or 70s. But again, for nostalgic, I do kind of try to look past that and understand, you know, what this is trying to do at its core. And I think for kids, it's a fun type of read. It's pretty basic. It's straightforward. It's a Beverly Cleary middle grade, like up there with Ramona and Beezus. I think I gave this one like 3 stars. I enjoyed it. The last book that I read for 2021 for February was World of Wonders by Amy. I'm not even going to try and pronounce that. It's a whole lot of letters. I'm sorry, but you guys have probably seen this book in Barnes & Noble. If you have been, this was the 2020 book of the year, so I really wanted to check this out. This was a hefty book for this. It was $25, which to me seemed a bit overpriced, but I enjoyed it. It was pretty cute. It's basically following this author through her life as she's talking about different elements of moving around a lot, and she kind of has a multicultural family. She's biracial. There's just a lot of different elements that were encompassed in this. It included a lot of animals, like things that kind of just applied to her life in different kind of ways, which I really enjoyed. I love the illustration style of this, was super cute, and it was pretty easy to read overall. The stories weren't super long and all kind of flowed pretty nicely all together. I think I ended up giving this like a 3 or 4 star. I enjoyed it. Again, probably not one of my favorites that I'll go back to, but I liked it and I thought the illustration style was really cute. All right, friends, so now let's get into the bulk of my reading for the last 3 months, which of course was middle grade March. So if you guys have seen any of those videos on my channel, you know that I was trying to read 50 books in the month of March. I got to 34, so not quite there, 32, 34, I think 34. So pretty close, not quite where I was wanting to be, but I mean, 34 books in a month regardless is pretty freaking blah. So 34 books, not where I was trying to be, but overall I'm pretty proud of myself for that. So I'm going to jump through these pretty quickly just because there is so many of them. They're all middle grade. They're all pretty nostalgic for me. I think I rated most of them 3 or 4 stars. So we'll go ahead and jump through these ones pretty quickly. So the first one I read is The Castle in the Mist by Amy Ephron. I think I ended up giving this one actually 2 stars. It's about kids that discover this magical castle. Wasn't my favorite, left a little bit to the imagination, but overall was a good book. Then I read 3 very nostalgic reads for me, and these are the Gator Girl series. This one is Rockin' Reptiles, Get Well Gators, and Gator Halloween. These are about 2 young girls that are alligators living in their world and the fun little adventures that they get up to. I enjoyed them, purely nostalgic, but a good time. Next, I read Pigs Might Fly by Dick King-Smith. Enjoyed this one actually quite a bit. This is one of my favorite Dick King-Smiths that I've read. He was the author of Babe, and there's just something about a cute little pig that wants to learn how to fly that just warms your soul. Speaking of pigs, I then read Oliver and Amanda's Halloween by Jean Van Leeuwen. Again, 2 little pigs, the adventures that they get up to, very nostalgic, nothing too crazy. I loved it. Then I read When Life Gives You Mangoes by Corinne Getton. I think this came out either this year or last year. I enjoyed this. It wasn't my favorite of my middle grade reads for this year. There was a lot that kind of, I feel like, was predictable slash, I don't know, it was just a very slow book, if that makes sense. And it took me a while to get through this, where I feel like for a book less than 200 pages, I feel like it should have been a little bit quicker and easier for me to get through, but so it was definitely more slow paced than I would have preferred. And then I read all of the Littles series that I had wanting to read in my month. So I read The Littles and Their Amazing New Friend, The Littles and the Terrible Tiny Kid, The Littles Go Exploring, The Littles and the Lost Children, The Littles and the Trash Tinies, The Littles to the Rescue, The Littles Give a Party, The Littles and the Great Halloween Scare, The Littles Have a Wedding, and The Littles Take a Trip. And I know there's probably more in this stack that we'll get to, but that's a pretty good bulk of it. This is about a tiny family that's a couple inches tall that live in the walls of a house, and just the adventures that they get up to over a very large book series. I love these. These are books I loved as a kid and loved revisiting. They're a little simpler and a little more straightforward. And again, some elements of this don't age quite so well, but I enjoyed them and they're always fun to go back to. Next, I read the Tales of a Fourth Grade Nothing series, or the Fudge series by Judy Blume, which includes Tales of a Fourth Grade Nothing, otherwise known as Sheila the Great, Fudgemania, and Super Fudge. These are about a boy named Peter who has a crazy little brother named Fudge. I, again, read these in elementary school and loved them. I just think they're so entertaining. The antics that they all get up to, and I just think they were cute. Again, because these are a little bit older, certain things about them don't age quite so well. Like I remember in the Sheila the Great movie there was an element where they were talking about how fat a character was in a very derogatory way, which definitely kind of took me out of it for a minute. But other than that, again, super cute, super fun children's reads, and I enjoyed them. And then, continuing on, I finished the rest of the Doll People series, which includes The Meanest Doll in the World, The Runaway Dolls, which I hadn't realized, but I hadn't actually read this one before, so this is my first time reading this one. And then the fourth continuation in that series, which is The Doll People Set Sail, which is a beautiful, like, painted edition that I love. The dust jacket definitely was lost off this, I believe, but still beautiful. So really enjoyed these. These last two, like I mentioned, I hadn't read before, so it was cool to read those for the first time. Okay, and then here is The Littles, the first book in the series by John Peterson that I had read this month. Right, two more Dick King Smith books. Again, if you saw these in my reading vlogs, you probably know, but I read Harriet the Hare and Funny Frank. This one, both of these are just cute little nostalgic children's books about little fun animals that want to just be different. This one's about an alien, actually, that turns into a rabbit, and this one is about a chick that wants to be a duck. So, cute, fun, quick reads. And the last set of books that I read for middle grade March is, of course, the Mrs. Pigglewiggle series. This is a bind-up of Mrs. Pigglewiggle, Mrs. Pigglewiggle's Magic, and Hello, Mrs. Pigglewiggle. Then I also read Mrs. Pigglewiggle's Farm and Happy Birthday, Mrs. Pigglewiggle, which was actually written by her daughter, Betty McDonald and Anne McDonald Canham. So, super cute. I hadn't read this one before, and I did enjoy it, though not quite as much as the original series. Whew. Okay, so those are all the books that I read in the last 3 months. I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope this gave you a sneak peek into what my reading has been like the last 3 months. Like I mentioned, most of these for the next few quarters are not going to be quite so intensive with books because I read 34 books in March, which doesn't happen normally. So I promise the next few months are going to be much shorter, but I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Give it a thumbs up if you did like it, subscribe to see more of my face, and I will see you guys in the next one. Goodbye!